Sandra Cohen was 33 years old when he died. Up to then, he was probably one of the most challenging children we ever had. He was unique, and the sad part was we didn't know how unique he was. We found that out after he died. How much he was loved, how creative he was, how funny he was, because he was with other people, not with us. With us, he was a pain in the ass. But with other people, he was smart and articulate. As one of his friends said, he could argue with anybody and he would win the argument even when he was wrong. So that was one of my favorite thoughts of him.
So our son, Sandra Cohen, like Neil said, was 33 when he died, and he would help anybody, anywhere, and that's how he died, helping somebody who he didn't know on a highway who had crashed his vehicle. And he stopped and he helped Carlos Wolf get out of his vehicle, and they were killed by somebody driving down the highway. And his friends will say that he would help anybody, even if they didn't want any help. But then again, he was a firefighter and a fire marshal, Maryland State Police, and most of his friends were in the service as well, and they would have done the same thing. I wanted to become an EMT, so I dragged Neil and I asked Sandra, who was home from college, do you want to go to the firehouse and get interviewed? And of course, Sandra was like, yeah. And Neil was like, okay. So we went, we got interviewed, we could become members. Neil said, I'm not sleeping there every Friday night for 12 weeks. I said, hey, I don't like to get wet and cold. And Sandra goes, bye, I'm moving in. So he became a live-in for 9 years. Well, I was really proud of him, plus he was hilarious. So he would come home and tell all kinds of stories, gory, horrible stories, but in such a funny way that you'd be sitting there laughing your head off. He loved the service, and he made us love it.
We actually didn't know a lot of the stuff that went on, but within that first year, he got an award for being a hero his first year. I remember we were surprised, but what was even more surprising and funny was when he described the award. He translated it from what was on the paper to what really happened, and then we were just laughing. But he just wanted to help people, and he started by helping people, and he never stopped. I've been interviewed before, and the bottom line is he was just a natural. He wasn't, I never felt that he was different than anybody else. He just loved what he did, and he couldn't stop. Again, one of the funny things, which is not funny, but the day that the fire marshal came to our door to tell us he had been killed, Arlene yelled, Neil, there are men at the door. And should I call the police? I said, Arlene, they are the police. And all his friends knew, because again, one of the things that happened was when the accident occurred, it occurred in the area of his own firehouse. So it was his people who came to his aid. They knew him, they knew everything, and they tried to save his life. In fact, there's some who really were traumatized from trying to do that. People were driving by and knew his car, and they knew that he was in an accident, but they couldn't tell us until we were notified. So they knew, we didn't, and we didn't know for several hours. To this day, his locker is glassed in. I don't know how many other lockers of other firemen are memorialized the way his locker was, but people still tell me stories about this at the funeral, of the stories of whether it's fire balloons or he glued money on the sidewalk, coins on the sidewalk in front of the firehouse, and watched people try to pick it up. He would do, he was punished for doing crazy things. He shot fire balloons across the street at the bank where there was a lady trying to make a deposit, and she came across saying, something like, I think somebody is firing water balloons, and the chief said, I don't think, I know. And they were just having, that was him. He always thought about ways to do crazy things. And he humanized the department. He ran it, I think, Thursday nights, right? He was he ran the
Shift leader.
He was the shift leader on Thursday nights, and because he was my son, I always asked the other guys, what kind of guy was he? You know, if it's your own child, you never think your own child's going to be really a good guy. You think he's going to be a screw up. And they said no. He ran it by the book. And what made it, I think, unique is he didn't micromanage. He gave his people their head. He let them know what he needed and let them make their decisions. And even as the fire marshal, one of my favorite things was people came to me and said, in the state, the other deputy fire marshals wanted to work for our son. That's because of the way he was, and we never knew that. So that was the kind of guy he was. He was the kind of guy that I wish he was there so he could rib me about something. You know, he was the kind. I'm bringing something up that is children tend to learn from their parents. They copy their parents, and I had a favorite refrain with him. I would always say, "What are you, an idiot?" That was my favorite. "What are you, an idiot?" And one day, my wife put a chicken in the oven, and a giant chicken in a plastic thing, and it was in the oven, and I turned the oven on, and the plastic melted down, and and it melted, and Sandra looked at me and said, "Dad, what are you, an idiot?" And I knew then. I got to him. Yeah, that was it. He never let me forget that one. So he was quick-witted. He had an ability to riff. He could take a subject and just go off on it. And again, that was him. So, right?
You got it.
She
right.
knows more of, because he would talk to her more than he would talk to me. Me, I was always, well, why are you doing your schoolwork? Why aren't you doing this? She would always, oh, let him be happy. But he ran the fire, you know, he did run that firehouse. And, but he did stuff, he challenged. The thing was, he challenged the idea of when your time off, if it was a weekend. Most jobs, you're off on a weekend and okay, that's it. But as a fire marshal, you couldn't drink if you were on call. You couldn't do anything. He said, well, if I can't do anything, what good is being off? And so he said, you should pay me, at least part. I think Montgomery County pays you, but he said, you should pay me, and they wouldn't do it. And so he decided that he was going to go deep sea fishing, which meant they weren't going to be able to reach him. And of course they couldn't. They tried to get a hold of him. And I think he got docked for that somehow, but he never told us. But he would always challenge and push the envelope. Arlene, when she talks to his friends, say, tell me the funny things. You know, he used to have a job as an intern at the state's attorney's office. And he would go to, he went there in pajamas and bedroom slippers. You know, how the hell do you go to work in pajamas and bedroom? But he always pushed. And they could never, they might get mad, but they could never stay mad at my son. He could flash his smile, and that was, right?
That's right.
he would do the stuff. And I usually leave it by saying, I wish you had known it, because that was the kind of, I didn't know him the way everybody else did. And he was that kind of guy. Being a hero, I don't know. Hero, he did what he thought was the right thing to do. And I ask that all the time, what is a hero? And I think the fact that he took responsibility to help others, he was a hero. He didn't become a firefighter to become a hero. None of the people I ever talked to do that. They actually become firefighters because A, they like the excitement, and B, they feel that they're contributing something. Mm-hmm. And it really does create a brotherhood. You are as close to being like in the military than anything else. And he loved the ability to help people.
Sander Cohen Scholarship Foundation. We founded it, Neil and I, because we want the next generation of leaders to be like Sander. So when people apply, we have a whole board of directors and advisors that vet the people and they all knew Sander. Some of them were his boss. And we feel that this is a way to honor him and to bring his courage and heroism and hopefully his sense of humor to the next generation of leaders.
But he had a smile. The thing was, he could have been like on Saturday Night Live. He had this most beautiful smile that could capture anybody.
I miss all the stories. Just so funny, so hilarious, so like unlike anything you've ever heard in your life. I mean, I could tell you stories for days.
She won't tell me the stories, but she'll tell.
He used to come over at 10 o'clock at night, and I was a night owl, so he'd sit there eating something or other and tell me all these stories. And I would be rolling. This one would be asleep, and I would be listening to the stories and going, you gotta be kidding me. No way, you didn't do that. What happened? Then what? It was just unreal. Well, the reason is because this one always, like, he was 60 credits from graduating. Okay, and he would always bug him about school. But meanwhile, he had a notebook this big of all the classes that he took. Every time there was something offered at the Maryland State Police or the Fire Marshal's office, he took the class. So he was a captain already at Rockville Volunteer Fire Department when he died. He was the deputy chief fire marshal in charge of the Northeast region. He had 12 fire marshals working under him. I mean, you don't, like, at 33, you don't get there unless you studied and you learned and you were able to command. So that's why he didn't hear the stories that I heard, because I was like, yeah, that's good, whatever you're doing, you're doing it right. He's like, no, go back to college and get that degree. You know, he was like very focused. He knew where he was going and what he wanted to do, which was pretty cool for a kid that was ADD his whole entire school life. But he found his niche and he knew exactly what he needed to do.
Sander, I'm thinking of stories. When he had a job in the summer, he worked for the David Taylor Model Base. David Taylor is the part of the Navy. It's the Surface Warfare Center.
It's in D.C. They do a lot of testing. Like they've got the largest pool of water where they can test a ship.
It's a really interesting place, and he got a summer job there. They had to put him and give him an office. So what office did they give him? The commandant of the base was off at the White House, so they gave him the commandant's, the head guy's office.
And what did he like to do the best there? Blow up batteries. So all his friends were working at, you know, fast food or bowling alley, whatever. He's getting paid to work at this job. And actually, he was the first person from Churchill High School, where he went to high school. He was the first science and engineering student to have an internship at this place. He was his own man. And I miss him every day because not only, you know, he was our son and it's horrible that he's gone, but he gave the world so much fun and light and lightness. I mean, he was just a terrific guy.
His life was short, but he lived and he touched many people.
He brought people together. He was like that kind of person that always brought the group together and made it fun and, you know, made everybody laugh and always had an idea what we should do. He was a really, really neat kid.
Here's to you, with that smile on your face.